All right, today we are diving into a concept that completely flipped the world of artificial intelligence on its head. It's a paradox, and it's the reason why a task that's child's play for a toddler can be an absolute nightmare for some of the most powerful computers ever built. So, let me just start by asking you a question. What do you think is a tougher challenge for an AI? Is it mastering a super complex strategy game like checkers or chess? Or is it just recognizing a friend's face in a photo?
You might think it's the game, right? But the answer is by a long shot recognizing the face. It's kind of wild. See, for decades, we've had computers that can beat the best human players at strategy games. But teaching a machine to do something a baby does without even trying, like just seeing and understanding the world, that has been a monumental struggle. And that's the puzzle we're going to piece together today.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get a clear definition of what Moravec's paradox actually is. Then we'll dig into its evolutionary roots, and trust me, it goes way back. We'll look at how this whole idea completely blindsided the early AI pioneers, how it forced them down a totally new path, and then we'll see where things stand with the paradox today. So, what is this thing really? What is Moravec's paradox? Well, the simplest way to put it is this. It's the bizarre reality in AI where the things that feel hard for us humans are often super easy for computers, and the things that feel easy for us are brutally, incredibly difficult for them.
Here's the more official definition. It's the observation that it's comparatively simple to get a computer to perform at an adult level on things like intelligence tests, but it's an enormous challenge to give it the basic perceptual and motor skills of a 1-year-old.
And this comes directly from the man himself, the roboticist Hans Moravec, back in 1988. He saw this firsthand. Think about it. He realized programming a computer to master checkers was one thing, but just getting a robot to walk across a cluttered room without tripping, that was a whole different universe of difficulty. And the great AI pioneer Marvin Minsky gave us a huge clue as to why this feels so backwards to us. He said that we're least aware of what our minds do best. All the really complex stuff like catching a ball, understanding a tone of voice. It all happens under the hood, unconsciously. It works so perfectly that we don't even think of it as a skill. It's just being. Which brings us to this perfect summary from cognitive scientist Steven Pinker. He basically said the biggest lesson from the first few decades of AI research was that everyone had it backwards. The hard problems were easy, and the easy problems were hard. So why? Why is that the case? Well, the answer isn't really about computers at all. It's about us. It's in our biology, in our DNA. The real reason for this paradox is evolution. You could call it a billion-year head start. Just look at this timeline. Our sensory motor skills, the ability to see, to move, to navigate the physical world, these have been honed by natural selection over billions of years of life on Earth. But abstract reasoning, things like math, logic, complex language, that's brand new hardware. It's a recent upgrade, less than 100,000 years old. Moravec himself put it beautifully. He said, our ability to reason is just the thinnest veneer of human thought. It's like the tiny tip of an iceberg poking out of the water. It only works because it's sitting on top of this massive, invisible, ancient foundation of sensory motor knowledge that does all the real heavy lifting. And this table just lays it all out, doesn't it? On the left, you have the ancient skills that feel effortless to us. On the right, the new stuff that takes real concentration. So when you look at it this way, it's really no surprise that trying to build the skills on the left from scratch has been a much, much bigger challenge for AI. Now, all of this might seem pretty clear to us today, but for the brilliant pioneers of AI back in the day, this was a total blind spot, and it led to what you could call the great AI miscalculation. I mean, the optimism back then was just off the charts. Listen to this famous prediction from Herbert Simon, one of the founders of the field, back in 1965. He truly believed that a machine that could do any work a human could do was just 20 years away. So why were they so incredibly confident and yet so incredibly wrong? Well, their logic seemed sound at the time, but it was fundamentally flawed. They had these amazing early successes with problems that were really hard for humans, right? Like abstract algebra and playing chess. So they just assumed, okay, once we crack these hard problems, the easy stuff like vision and walking around will just kind of fall into place. When you get right down to it, they had this unconscious bias. They basically defined intelligence as the stuff that they, as brilliant, highly educated scientists, found difficult. And that tells you so much about how we see ourselves, right? We value the conscious, sweaty, effortful thinking we do. but we completely ignore the computational miracles our brains are performing every single second just to let us see and navigate the world. They miss the fact that a toddler walking across a room is performing a calculation far more complex than anything in an algebra textbook. So, when the reality of this paradox hit home in the 1980s, it really sparked a crisis in the AI community. But it was a good crisis. It forced a radical and totally necessary shift in direction. It was time to forge a new path. And a key figure in this shift was a researcher named Rodney Brooks. He basically said, let's throw out the old top-down approach. Instead of trying to build a disembodied brain in a vat that only does reasoning, he argued for a bottom-up approach. His idea was to build simple robots that learned by actually sensing and acting in the real world. You'd layer on simple behaviors like avoid that wall or move towards the light, and out of that, complex intelligence would emerge. It was a revolution. He was saying intelligence isn't about pure thought. It's about what you do. It's about being in the world. Okay, so that brings us to now. Where do things stand today? Does Moravec's paradox still hold up? Well, the game has completely changed, and it's thanks to one massive, incredible factor, just raw, brute force computing power. Thanks to Moore's law, the computers we have today are literally hundreds of millions of times faster than what they were working with back in the 70s. And that sheer, staggering amount of power is what's finally letting us start to simulate those billions of years of evolution. We can now throw enough computation at the problem to begin cracking those hard, easy problems of perception and mobility. And this leads us to a really great modern take on the paradox from AI leader Andrew Nung. He has this rule of thumb. If a typical person can do a mental task in under 1 second, like recognizing an object in a picture, then we can probably automate it with AI, either now or in the very near future. We are finally starting to catch up on those ancient, intuitive, easy skills. So when you boil it all down, Moravec's paradox is this crucial lesson that our own intuition about what's hard or easy is a really terrible guide for building AI. It reminds us that the skills that evolution spent billions of years perfecting are the true grand challenges. And honestly, if you understand this one paradox, you understand the entire story of AI. Its early failures, its big pivots, and its mind-blowing successes we're seeing today. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. For so long, these easy problems of just seeing and moving were the huge wall standing in the way of progress. But now that AI is starting to climb over that wall, we have to start asking ourselves, what's next? What part of our intelligence, if any, will actually remain uniquely human?